We're at Loftus Road in West London, home of Queen's Park Rangers, nicknamed the Hoops after their hoop shirts. Queen's Park Rangers became the first third division club to win the Football League Cup when they beat West Bromwich Albion 3-2 in the final at Wembley in 1967, the winning goal being scored in the dying minutes of the match. It was an historical occasion, no less, because the Football League Cup final had never before been played at the National Stadium. A whole host of outstanding players has represented the club. Among them is England international Rodney Marsh, who signed as a striker from Fulham in 1966. Over the next 6 years, he made 242 appearances and scored 134 goals. In his first full season, 1966-67, he scored 44 goals in 53 games to help Queen's Park Rangers become third division champions and League Cup winners. Midfielder and former England captain Gerry Francis made his debut for the club in March 1969. He made 352 appearances in 2 spells up until 1982. He was captain during the 1970s and a key player in arguably the club's best ever side that finished runners-up in the old First Division in 1975-76. Stan Bowles, one of the club's most colourful characters, made 315 appearances and scored 96 goals playing as a midfielder or striker between 1972 and 1980. In a 2004 supporters poll, he was voted the club's best ever player. So, how did it all begin? Queen's Park Rangers' story begins with the creation of a pioneering housing estate in Kensal Green, West London. Built during the late 19th century, it was named after the monarch Queen Victoria. What made the Queen's Park estate so distinctive at that time was that its tree-lined streets, shops and parks were designed for working-class people, 16,000 of them. It had a high moral tone. There were no pubs, shops weren't allowed to sell alcohol, and any residents found drunk were evicted. This was home for most of the first Queen's Park Rangers players. The moral tone of the area was reinforced by the parish church of St Jude's, which stood on the edge of the estate. The population of the estate grew so rapidly that the vicar of St Jude's, Reverend Sidney Bott, decided to establish a St Jude's presence in the very heart of the estate. And in 1884, he opened this mission hall called St Jude's Institute. It became the headquarters of Queen's Park Rangers Football Club until 1898. In those early years, a company of the Boys Brigade was established here. That's an organisation designed to promote the Christian faith among boys. And one of the members of the Boys Brigade company here at St Jude's Institute was Jack Mcdonald. He was to become one of the founders of Queen's Park Rangers. Jack was born in Glasgow in 1869, but as a young child he left Scotland with his family to move here to the Queen's Park estate in London. He became a pupil of Droop Street Board School, and it was in the playground of this school that he discovered a passion for football that he was never to lose. He spent every spare minute he could in the playground playing football, and of course after school as well with his friends on any open space they could find. By his mid-teens, Jack was ready for something better. He wanted to play organised football on a regular basis. And sometime in 1885, he spoke to his friend Fred Weller about this, and they agreed they should form a football club. And where else to find a willing squad of players but from among their friends in the Boys Brigade at St Jude's Institute. The players all agreed that their club should be named after the place where they all frequently met, St Jude's Institute FC. St Jude's Institute is now called St Jude's Hall. The vicar gave his full support to the club by allowing them to use St Jude's Institute as their headquarters, and also by allowing them to use the name of the church in their title. Well, as was common at the time, it was a team of very mixed ages, ranging from 12, unbelievably, up to 20. The very first match report I've been able to find was February 1886, an away match against Vulcan FC 3rd 11. Vulcans won 4-0. So quite clearly, St Jude's Institute had a long way to go before they would be a force in local football. In March 1886, a month later, St Jude's played their great rivals, Christchurch Rangers. This match was to have huge significance. Christchurch Rangers had been formed in 1882 from a boys' club started at the Christchurch Mission on the nearby College Park estate. Well, after the match, George Woodhouse, one of the founders of Christchurch Rangers, proposed that the two clubs should merge. The idea was that the two combined would be much stronger than either of them separately. He put the idea to the two sides and a merger was agreed and it went ahead. But there was a big problem. The name St Jude's Institute continued to be the name of the new club, and St Jude's Institute was also the headquarters of the new club. Not surprisingly, some of the Christchurch Rangers players felt they'd been victims of a takeover, and they walked out angrily. To help the remaining members of Christchurch Rangers feel fully included in the union, it was absolutely essential to find a name for the new club that was acceptable to everyone. Now, as most of the players all lived on the Queen's Park estate, the inspired solution was to incorporate the name of the estate into the title and to couple it with the word Rangers to show continuity with the former Christchurch Rangers. And so, the new name, Queen's Park Rangers, was born. Reverend Sidney Bott gave his full support to the new Queen's Park Rangers Football Club. He allowed them to continue using St Jude's Institute as their headquarters. That same year, 1886, a new curate joined the church. His name was Gordon Young. Gordon was a footballer and he joined the club as a centre forward. He was a goal-getter and he certainly put those goals away. But more importantly, he was a great leader, and he had this ability to combine the two factions of the club that had previously been suspicious of each other. With Gordon at the helm there, the club went from strength to strength. And when he left 2 years later to become a rector elsewhere, it would have been a great loss to Queen's Park Rangers. Nevertheless, Queen's Park Rangers Football Club went from strength to strength. In 1898, they became professional and also became a limited company. And this meant, of course, an official parting of the ways with the church. However, in 2011, on the 125th anniversary of the club, it publicly acknowledged its debt to the church when a plaque was unveiled on the St Jude's Institute building by Queen's Park Rangers legendary player Stan Bowles. During the ceremony, Andy Evans, the chief executive of Queen's Park Rangers in the Community Trust, spoke of Sidney Bott, saying, "If it wasn't for the foresight of the reverend gentlemen of the parish, it is very unlikely that Queen's Park Rangers Football Club would have come into existence and developed into one of the country's top 20 sides." Today, the club has a football outreach development manager, Dave Robinson. He spearheaded the erection of the plaque. I asked him what the community's response was.
It was fantastic, to be fair. Obviously, the club being formed in Queen's Park, at the time of the unveiling of the plaque, we didn't have too much presence in the area. We had in years gone by, and then it just sort of went a little bit quiet. So I think in terms of us coming down and unveiling the plaque, there's a real sense of belonging within the Queen's Park community. And I'm pleased to say, since we've unveiled the plaque, you know, there is a legacy in place. We've worked on a number of projects with the local area, and we'll continue to do so moving forward.
Someone very much involved with the club's local community is the chief executive of its community trust, Andy Evans, who gave that eulogy to Sidney Bott. Andy, as you know, Queen's Park Rangers is a club of church origin, and at the time it was founded, the church had a huge impact. To what extent is that spirit still alive in the club?
Well, I'd say that the spirit is very much still in existence, because what I would say is, and I often describe it as that, that community work and having the roots in the community, and in our case, via the church in Queen's Park originally, it's very much part of the club's DNA.
Do you have problems with drugs in the locality, and do you do anything perhaps to try and help that?
We do. There are some challenges. You know, we've got a housing estate across the road, the White City Estate. It's an area that does suffer from poverty and the different challenges that go with that. So we do workshops around not just drugs, but maybe you know, dangers of joining gangs, alcohol awareness, even touching on you know, other healthy lifestyle aspects as well. So it's, you know, we try and use the power of football to try and get those messages across to young people.
But what about the players' needs? The pressures they face today were not even imagined in those early days, something the club's chaplain, Bob Mayo, is well aware of.
The players, when they come to it, have to live this double world of confidence and vulnerability. You've got to be confident to go in for the tackle, but you're always vulnerable at the risk of injury or short-term contract. And again, there's a realm of sort of continuity the chaplaincy provides. It's that sense of being alongside people which is very important. And when crisis happens, when something different happens, we've got our relationships in place. That's sort of critical for the club. Again, because of this strand of confidence and vulnerability that goes down, it's a good thing for the club. The religion, the Christian faith, provides the safety net, the reassuring presence.
The Christian presence at the club today can trace its roots all the way back to the Victorian era.